Good evening, Razorback fans. Welcome to another episode of Hog Talk Podcast, live from the Stirling Soap and Roastery Studios, part of the Believe a Buzz Radio Network, where you can hear us on 106.7 in Central Arkansas. All live shows are presented to you by Arkansas Brewing Company in downtown Ozark. I'm Porter Hayes, and alongside me, as always, is Adam Hall. And we're also brought to you by Bet Online, your number one source for every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads while the games are being played. When the game's over, head on over to our online casino and get in on a game of blackjack, poker, or even unwind with over 150 slot games. Head to the website today and get in on the action. Use promo code BLEAV for your 50% welcome bonus. Bet online, the game starts here. And tonight at 7, we'll be joined by Rod Lovan of Stirling Soap Company. And so we'll touch on some basketball stuff to ramp up. We'll talk football with him. But Coach Cal and some players met with the media for the very first time with fall camp coming up. Look, Cal's he's the big dog. And when he speaks, when he's got his players on one of the most anticipated seasons, I would say since the 90s, it has to be. And then you look at the schedule, which we'll talk about in a second. But man, with the talent he's got and the schedule he's wanting to put together, they're not playing around.
No, they're really not. He touched on today where they were at, what he came into. One thing that he brought up, he walked into literally nothing, no schedule, no roster, nothing. Obviously no staff, but he's built what he wants. When he talked about the players, he said a good thing about coming into what he came into. He's like, we got to handpick every single player. We didn't, it wasn't people we were left with. It wasn't, we didn't have to have difficult conversations. We got to handpick every single player. And so, he talked about essentially like the guys that he's gotten after the initial 8 or 9 that we've seen trickle in. They know why they're here. They're here for practice. If they can make the rotation, great. He's given them that opportunity, but at the same time, it's one of those, they have to earn their keep. They have to earn the spot to get into the rotation. So it's not going to be a bunch of drama, players complaining about playing time, essentially.
Yeah. So, which
we've seen happen before.
Yeah. And, we have a video, Coach Cal, he actually touched on that type of player, what he is wanting at the University of Arkansas.
If you're drinking, smoking, clubbing, or chasing, don't come here. If you're not into basketball, if you got a little bit of fraud in you, don't come here. If you're delusional, don't. If you're a grinder and you want to challenge yourself against other really good players, then you come here. If you want to see how good you can become, but you're going to have to earn it. If you want to take what you want, this is the place. Not going to change.
Perfectly said. And we had touched on the fact that I'd kind of compared him and Colby Hale. I got to sit in on a practice of Colby's one time and just how he carried himself and the level of respect that he got from those players. And it didn't matter if it was Potagil or a brand new freshman. If you didn't do something right, he put you on the bench. And he was not nice about it. But they still respected him. And I see this happening. And you're talking about playing with the best. Your schedule, if that stands true with even if it's exhibition, you're going to come here and you're going to play against the best. You're going to be practicing against the best. Give me 1 year. Don't, when he's talking about the clubbing and the chasing and all that, give me 1 year. Stay off Dixon Street. Just give me 1 year. I'm going to get you $1 million contract. That would be his pitch. And if you can't see the wall that of the NBA players that he's coached or he's produced, I think I would listen. Mm-hmm. And that's all he's asking. Give me 1 year. Give me 1 year and I will make you a pro.
Yeah. And something else he quote on is, he said, I believe individual development comes from team play or comes before team play, getting them to understand where we take them. The foundation for that has started right here in the summer. Culture first, winning follows. And he talked about too, like this morning, he's like, we got him up in here at 8 a.m. to do weight training. He said, who wants to do weight training at 8 a.m.? And his point was they're going to, as we've heard about in practice, some videos about, we're going to get you comfortable being uncomfortable. And that's kind of his deal, because he touched on that with John L. Davis today when he was kind of talking about the different players. And he said, John L. Davis lives in the gym. He's in there 2 or 3 times a day. What I want to do is make him uncomfortable. We have to make him comfortable being uncomfortable. That's when you become an attack dog. And this is a guy that is seasoned in a sense that you don't have to tell him to go work out. You don't have to tell him to go to the gym, to practice, to shoot, to lift weights, whatever. So yeah, that's how else can we push him? And it's making them uncomfortable, making them do things that they're not used to.
Look at Jalen Williams. Probably, if you look at all, and this is no knock on Jalen whatsoever, but if you look at all the players that Musselman had and that talent, if you would have said who's going to be the mainstay, who's going to be that one guy not fighting for a roster spot, who's going to be that one guy that's in the rotation making a big impact on their NBA team, I don't know how many people would have said. I mean, truthfully, everybody loved Jalen. They wanted him. He was a fan favorite, but he would have been the one that you wouldn't have mentioned. You would have Nick Smith Jr., Anthony Black, Moses Moody. Look at how some of those guys are fighting for a roster spot. They're doing the 10-day. They're coming on. Jordan Walsh got in there and got a ring, but Jalen Williams has been that guy, and that's that work ethic. And it's crazy that people say that, look what he's doing in the summer. Well, he's building a foundation, because guess what? You're getting this team continuity. The biggest knock I said against Musselman was how long it was taking his teams to click. Look what he's doing in August. Not even August, July. Just think what this team's going to be like come November. If they buy into his program, iron sharpens iron. It's going to be an electric team, and they're all going to have one goal. And look, I don't care if people want to knock him saying this is a selfish deal, but you know what? If you have 5 guys and all of them get drafted, they're NBA talent guys, you're going to end up winning a national championship.
Well, that was something that on another show, and I forget which one it was, but Willie Cauley-Stein, who played for Coach Cal at Kentucky, he was kind of talking about how Cal was. He really hoped that when Arkansas comes to Rupp this season, that the fans give Cal a warm welcome for what he did. Wow. I will say that I kind of feel like it's going to be one of those, which Arkansas has been known to do this too. You give them applause in the beginning, and then after that, all bets are off.
Exactly.
So,
yep.
And that's, I agree with that 100%. But he just talked about like Cal pushing them. Cal keeps talking about making them uncomfortable. He's doing everything in his power to make them the best and to get them prepared for the next level when competition is going to be even tougher, when you can't rely on just your scholarship and, whatever you get from the university, or you can be fired from a team, essentially traded, released, whatever. And then he talked about too that, they asked him what the relationship was like, and he just, point blank period he was a father figure to all of us. Doesn't matter your background, doesn't matter if you have a dad at home. He was that father figure for us. And even still, these players leave and they still touch base with them. He has several players that he's talked about that they talk or text or whatever, communicate once every couple of weeks. And that's just the relationship he's built with these guys. And then he touched on, Trevin Brazile. They were asked about him, and he said, Trevin is better than I expected. I want him to play with that confidence. I'm feeling good about who we have, and they're going to compete. So, it's one of those, he's got lofty goals for Brazile and everybody, but, it's good to hear that Brazile is making waves with him.
Yeah, if we get the old TB back, like the dominant TB, who it's funny in the football world, you could kind of compare him to like Hudson Clark. If the dude plays in his position, he's not playing out as his position, he can be very electric. And if he gets that confidence back, he could be a terror. But going back to my previous point, when he's talking about the hard work, look, you're gonna, okay, let's not even talk about college. You're trying to get to the pro. So one, you got to be the top 2, top 3 on your team, get drafted, and then you're fighting for an 8-10 man rotation. If you want to get to the league and get in that rotation and not just be a summer league player, it takes hard work. I mean, you see big money contracts and stuff, but don't realize the work and the off season. I mean, you're not on campus. You're a big boy. You got to do your own thing on the off season. You're not in a controlled environment on a campus with curfew and stuff. So you got to come at this with a business approach, because when you get to the league, hey, look, that leash comes off. The curfews go away, everything goes away. But and you talk about scrutiny. You think the fans are on you at Arkansas. Wait till you got TMZ. Wait till you got Fox News, ESPN. You don't just have a local people coming down on you. You have the whole sports world looking at every move you make. The bigger you get, that could be overwhelming for some, but that just shows you how much work you have to put into to really truly make it in the league.
And I thought there was another point. Let me pull up here. He was making getting the guys to think bigger, or you think big, you have to plan bigger, you have to prep bigger, because he put it, he wants his players to think like kings. And it's hard to get some players to think like you have a big plan in place, and it's how do I get to that spot? And he's like, no, you have a big plan, you want to get past that. So how can I get you to think past that? How can I get you to think bigger? I mean, even little things like we were talking about earlier, which he mentioned, he's done this at Kentucky, he's done this at other places, but he's when they get back after their break here, he's going to have the track coaches come in just to basically, teach them how to sprint. And then he went on, he said, not how to sprint necessarily, but how to run. And in the presser, he was just like, you got guys running and their legs are all out, arms are all out. And he's like, got to come in and learn how to run. And you got to think, because as he said, the way they want to play, you've got to be able to fly up and down the court.
Yeah.
So here you are with the track capital of the world. You've got the best track coaches. Might as well use them while you can.
Yeah, the conditioning alone. You talk. I laugh because I was thinking of the 40 minutes of hell, 40 minutes Cal. He's a great coach, but everybody has to remember, look who he's played against. Look at the coaches he's coached against. Look, he knows. I mean, Boeheim, Krzyzewski, Hurley, everybody, all the greats that he's went against, Patino. He knows a little thing or two about not just coaching, but who you're going to be going up against and what it's going to take to beat them. I love the fact that they're bringing in the track coaches to get them ready. But the point I wanted to make was you said something about kings. And when I said, give me 1 year and you'll be in the league, look, you give this university all you have. This is to the whole team. This is a message to the whole team. You give this university all you have, every ounce of your ability. You win a national championship, one. It's not a Kentucky or an Alabama in football where it's just another national championship, or Kentucky, okay, we're just going to hang another bit. You win one national championship at the University of Arkansas, you'll be kings forever. You go back to 94. Look, we're still celebrating that. Think about it. This group won a national championship, or next year won a national championship. You'll be remembered forever.
And speaking on that, that's one thing he talked about, the excitement, the buzz that's going in. Like you said, I feel the excitement. I feel it around the building, feel it around the state. He was shocked. He said, I was told a couple of weeks ago that we've already sold out of season tickets. And he was just like, people, it's July and we're already sold out of season tickets. And then, like you're saying, you think that's nuts. It's just wait till, if the day comes that you do win one. Because like you said, we're still talking. He referenced Corliss Williamson and the '94 national championship team and the runner-up next season. So he's referencing those, during this whole thing. That he knows how to get the fans even more involved and realize how big and how precious this could be. And I think he'll do a good job also of relaying that to the team, to the players, to let them know how important this is.
Yeah, and I think that might take a minute to sink in truly. I don't think Coach Cal can hype it up. We can talk about it. The fans can talk about it. But until every single game they're in that arena, Bud Walton Arena, and it's 19-2, and they're yelling at the top of their lungs. It's a Saturday morning game against Vanderbilt, or it's a Wednesday night game against Nicholls State, and you got 19-2 in there watching you play, hyping it up. That's when it's really going to sink in of this is how much these fans believe in us, because yes, the whole season ticket thing sounds very nice, but them showing up for those midweek games, the student section camped out on a Wednesday for a Saturday game, whoever it may be, not just a hyped up game. That's when it's really going to sink in, when these kids are walking into practice and there's tents outside waiting for your game. And it could be Texas, it could be Auburn, Alabama, but that's where I felt like, again, we got robbed on that whole, the Arkansas Texas game, or the Arkansas Kentucky game being a home and home. Just the atmosphere. But yeah, this team, I don't think this team really knows, because you can't you can show any kind of film, anything like that. School hasn't started yet. They hadn't gotten full swing. You can go to the football arena and get a little bit of excitement, but it's not really going to hit them until, imagine they get Kansas and Bud Walton Arena for an exhibition game. It's going to be like the Purdue game. It's going to be nuts. And hopefully that nothing happens outside of that takes, there's no planes flying over introducing a new coach.
You would hope not. I was looking back here at last year's game, right quick. Arkansas, Kentucky. Kentucky was number 6 then. I'm just looking to see. So besides obviously Brazil, luckily, and I say this because they're guys that know what the environment and the excitement can be, is Theo and DJ Wagner. Just because they got a lot of playing time in that game. But, those are 2 guys. And Big Z was there also. He only played a couple minutes. But, those are guys that can probably attest to the type of environment, if, the players didn't necessarily let whatever Cal tells them sink in. You've got 3 guys that have been in that arena when it's at capacity, balls to the wall. When you've got a bunch of,
that's the thing. They tell them, look, you know what it was like last year for one game. And I'm sure Kentucky goes into environments, but I really don't know. That hostile environment that is in the SEC. Auburn, maybe because that's a smaller arena, but Tennessee, I could see, but I don't think there is an environment that matches Arkansas when it comes to the SEC and basketball. When at its peak, and when we use the comparison prime for prime, when Arkansas fans are in their prime, when things are rolling, there's not another environment inside the NCAA. And I wouldn't say NCAA, because the Duke North Carolina game and stuff like that, or Duke and Fog Allen, but I would put them in the top 5 in the nation of just prime for prime. I would put Arkansas up there, maybe top 3, top 5 of those environments. And that's a lot of universities to choose from.
I was really kind of surprised, but also I like hearing it too. The exhibition games that he talked about, TCU and Dallas, and then, Kansas coming to Bud Walton is potentially going to be a big one. I know they're still working on it. We saw what Purdue was like last season. Obviously, the season didn't go the way we thought it would after that game. But playing these games, best against the best, essentially, you would love to see it, because you'd love to get an early taste of where the team's at. And so I know he said that they're still working on, I think, one more home game. But, walking into no schedule, he feels good about what they've got. I think he said he's still wanting to get a home game, but if need be, it could be a Oklahoma City or another Dallas, Little Rock, somewhere like that. But he'd prefer it to be in Bud Walton.
Yeah, and I still see them honoring that Little Rock game. I mean, that does mean a lot to the state. And did they play in Tulsa? They played the game in one game in Tulsa, right? Didn't they play OU in Tulsa?
We played OU in Tulsa, but now that's conference game. I don't think they've released all of that yet. But the Little Rock game, I think, is UCA.
Okay,
this year. Yeah.
Well, and to Cal's point, if you are the prime destination, why go to the PayPal Center, Paycom Center in OKC, the OK Center, when everybody wants to come see you in Bud Walton? You don't need to go give the players that we're going to get to go play. No, you get to play in front of these fans every single night. I don't know. I know, again, no disrespect to the football season. I'm very excited for that. But, just how he talked today, no nonsense, carried himself, it just gets you excited. So hopefully that excitement comes and carries into the football. And then, we're talking about atmospheres. They're talking about the atmosphere in Kentucky. I compare Kentucky's atmosphere in basketball to Alabama's atmosphere in football. It can get rowdy, but it's not that. It's nothing to write home about. They get very complacent and of course, they didn't want Cal. So, that showed you a couple years they didn't want it. So you don't have that atmosphere at Rupp Arena there's a bigger game going on tonight in TBT than there has been in a while inside Rupp Arena for the college game. And Louisville TBT's playing against the Kentucky TBT team. That's going to be a very electric game tonight at 8. So, but when Bud Walton's rocking, you can't hear nothing. You need to read somebody's captions to see what the person next to you is even saying.
And one thing I was glad to hear too, he, we saw what Ronnie Brewer's your title was going to be, honestly, director of recruiting or whatever it is, but he made more, kind of elaborated on a little more that it was going to be director of recruiting in the Mid-South. So essentially he said flat out, he's going to get the best players. He's going to go after and offer the best players. He just let everybody know it may be in-state kids, may not be in-state kids. He's going to go get the best players that are going to fit here, that have big goals, big dreams, etc. But also he's like, we've got to go to Dallas. We've got to go to St. Louis. We've got to go to Memphis. We've got to go to Oklahoma City. And just started referencing this whole general area that we have to be big in. We can't just rely. And I think right now, 2025 or 2026, there's a kid in Springdale, and I think he's one of the only ones with an offer. And I say that because the other 3 big in-state recruits have left Arkansas to go play at other academies across, the country. So they're no longer. You can still consider them. They're in-state. They're from here, but they're at their respective academies now. So he's it's one of those things. If the kid's here, great. If not, I'm going to go get the best player. If you're winning Elite Eights, Final Fours, and national championships, there's going to be no emphasis on the in-state kids. They're going to want them to come, but there's going to be not the emphasis that they're putting on. And again, when the kids, you're having the program that you are, and then they are leaving your school to go to, let's just bring up women's basketball for a second. They're going to South Carolina, they're going to an Ole Miss, and then they're getting drafted. This isn't some, 5-star kid that, they're coming to Arkansas and then they're going to the league. So therefore, hey, they're a Razorback. So winning cures all. This atmosphere cures all. And hopefully it transitions into football. And speaking of that, we're going to take a quick commercial break. After the break, we're going to bring on Rod Lovan of Stirling Soap. He's going to talk to us about some Razorback football, what his thoughts are on Bobby Petrino coming back, and then share some of the wonderful products he has in downtown Paris. And we'll be back right after the break.
Attention DIYers and home improvement enthusiasts. Are you searching for the right tools and the supplies to tackle your next project? Look no further than Mentor's Hardware Store. With locations in Ozark, Alma, and Clarksville, our vast selection of hardware and building materials is sure to have everything you need. Whether you're fixing a leaky faucet or building a new deck, most of our knowledgeable staff is always on hand to offer expert advice and guidance. And with our competitive prices and convenient online ordering, Meadows Hardware Store is your one-stop shop for all your DIY needs. Visit us today and let's build something amazing together. Are you in need of legal representation? Look no further than the law offices of Robertson, Beasley, Shipley, and Robinson. As the oldest law firm in the River Valley, we have been serving our clients for over 100 years, with locations in Ozark, Fort Smith, and Springfield. Our experienced team of attorneys provide expert guidance and advocacy in a wide range of legal areas, including personal injury, family law, criminal defense, and more. Trust in our history and experience to the results you deserve. Contact the law offices of Robertson, Beasley, Shipley, and Robinson today at 479-782-8813. That's 479-782-8813. Are you looking for a place to grab a cold drink and some delicious food? Look no further than Arkansas Brewing Company. Located at 201 South 1st Street in beautiful downtown Ozark, our establishment offers a wide selection of craft beers and tasty eats. But what sets us apart is our welcoming atmosphere and friendly staff. At Arkansas Brewing Company, you'll always feel like part of the family. So visit Destiny and Christopher Brockett and staff today and see for yourself what makes us the go-to spot for locals and visitors alike. Arkansas Brewing Company, come for the drinks and stay for the friends. Searching for premium brewery products that will take your daily routine to the next level? Look no further than Stirling Soap Company. Our handmade soaps, aftershaves, and balms are made with only the finest ingredients that give you the ultimate grooming experience. With a variety of scents to choose from, there's something for everyone. Plus, our products are crafted in small batches to ensure the highest level of quality. So why wait? Visit www.stirlingsoap.com or visit our retail store at 16 West Walnut Street in Paris, Arkansas. Shop our collection and discover the difference for yourself. Upgrade your grooming routine with Stirling Soap Company.
And want to welcome you back to the Hog Talk podcast. And we go to the Meadows Lumber Hotline, bring in Rod Lovan, Stirling Soap. Welcome back to the show. Love having you on. First, what was your original thought when you heard that Bobby Petrino was going to come back and be part of the staff at the University of Arkansas?
Redemption. that was it. I mean, that's when they first started the rumors that it was even a possibility. That was the first thing I thought. I was like, man, that would be just an absolute amazing redemption story if he could come back here and help pull the Razorbacks out of the funk that they've been in, really since he left. It would make for a really good story. And I know there's a lot of people that are pulling against it that, think he's a jerk and will always be a jerk and he doesn't deserve a second chance, but whatever. I mean,
yeah,
let him come in here and win. And a lot of the people in the state of Arkansas that were against his hiring, they'll jump on the bandwagon really quick.
Yeah. And we said that before the break. Winning cures all. And if they win 7, 8, 9 games and go to a bowl game or 7 games with a bowl game win, people are going to quickly forget all that stuff. And half of them did. I mean, because we were talking about the Duke game and they flew the plane over, said, "Welcome home, Bobby." I mean, half the fan base was already forgiving when they even announced it. But I'd said on the show, we're talking about the whole sports year is the year of redemption. Football needs to get to a bowl game. Basketball program needs to get back to the tournament. And the baseball team needs to get back to a super regional and Omaha. So you said it perfectly right there. And if you could think of one thing that you've seen this offseason or heard this offseason that's kind of piqued your interest or made it seem like things could be going in the other direction in a positive way, what was that stood out to you?
It was actually a story I saw today. I don't know how old the story is, but it talked about their at Petrino's insistence, they're going to be throwing the power I back into their list of formations, which I think is absolutely brilliant considering, we've got an absolute beast of a man in Braylon Russell coming up to you've got to find a way to put him on the field, but they didn't bring the kid in from Utah to ride the pine. So you've got a chance to have something that's not been seen in football for a long time with an actual a tandem running back, an actual real duo on the that has potential to be both of them be superstars, and I'm actually excited to see that. It talks about in the article that it's something that the modern linebacker just they've grown up in spread offenses, fast pace, get up and down the field. Running a power I is going to be a complete foreign concept to them. And linebackers are, you're going away from the Ray Lewis, 255, 260-pound linebacker. Those guys are now on the edge. And, you're seeing linebackers that are coming in at 220, 230 at their tops. So, you have 247-pound Braylon Russell running up the middle, clearing holes for them, or even carrying the ball. That's going to be something it's going to be a foreign concept to them, and I'm excited to see how that turns out.
Going from last season into this season, is there a particular position group on either side of the ball that you think maybe not so much worried about now, but you're worried about from last season?
Linebackers. I mean, I think anybody should be worried about linebackers. We don't have a lot of there's not a lot of proven experience. We lost a lot from last year, and it'll be interesting to see how the guys that they've brought in, along with the young guys that are going to be getting their chance to start this year. It's going to be interesting to see how well they can step up. And I think they're going to go a long way towards whether or not this season's successful or not, because if our D-backs are the ones that are making all the tackles, 8, 9, 10 yards down the field, it's going to be a long season.
Yeah, you're talking about with that power I. I mean, look at the tight end core that you have. That not only can they run block, but you can do a little play action out of that, and really you're talking about spreading the field out of a power I with all those tight ends.
Well, yeah, and you've got a quarterback that he's not a bruiser like KJ was, but he's someone that can pull that ball out, and when you've run the back straight up the middle and everybody is converged on that, he can pull it around and on the bootleg and go 60, 70 yards down the field in a flash. And I'm excited to see it. It's going to be a brand of football that Arkansas has not seen since Felix Jones and Darren McFadden, if it works right. I think it's going to be really, really neat to see how it plays out, and I'm hoping it goes as well as I think it can.
Well, and to add to that point, Arkansas hasn't seen it, but hardly anybody else has. Maybe Georgia, because they play Georgia Tech. Back when they run the triple ops, you don't see it every day. Even you look at the old school Big Ten football. When you're watching those 11 a.m. Purdue Indiana games, and it was smash mouth football. They've even got away from it. So you go back to something where people aren't used to defending you. And even if you can try to defend it, you don't have the talent to stop it. It could bring an aspect of the game that nobody's really even thinking about. You think of Bobby Petrino and just air it out, but now you bring it in and just smash mouth football. That could be an interesting point.
Yeah. And it's not like it's going to be it's not like we're going back to Houston Nutt where we run the 3 up the gut and punt if that doesn't work offense. I mean, it's still going to be a Bobby Petrino offense. So I expect them to have, sophisticated route trees with guys running wide open. And I'm hoping that we finally have a quarterback, for the first time in the last few years, that's capable of throwing a pass before a receiver's even into his break and hitting a guy in stride with, not to take anything away from KJ, but that was one of the major limitations that our offense had the last few years is if the guy wasn't running wide open, there was not going to be a completion. I mean, he wasn't able to make a read to where he could throw the ball before the receiver had come out of his break. And he was absolutely abysmal on the slant route and crossing routes. He just could not do that. And if Bobby Petrino says Taylon Green can hit those throws, I trust that Taylon Green can hit those throws, and that's gonna you combine that with two running backs in the power I, and you've got something that's that everybody ran years ago, but now you've got a gimmick. You've got something different than everybody else right now.
So this is kind of for both of y'all. Just get your thoughts on
I like
Coach
these.
Travis Williams' video that came out last week. It's at 1.9 million views. You've had the likes of Pat McAfee, Randy Moss, and Ryan Clark all retweet it, comment on it, etc. So, that's something we don't really see anymore. But what were your initial thoughts on it?
Go
Go
ahead,
ahead,
Ron.
Porter. No,
Okay.
you go ahead.
Look, it's refreshing because we've always said that coaches got to be able to speak to this generation. You got to be able to relate with them, and you got to be in the moment. You can't just half-ass it or just you think you're cool doing it, but you don't look cool doing it. I mean, that's where, like me, my age, I would not look cool doing that. But for him to be able to do that, get the crowd behind him, get the players involved, I mean, all that does. And then you see Randy Moss, you see Ryan Clark, you see Pat McAfee commenting on it. All that does is what we've praised Cal for. Now, a 4-8 football team is getting talked about in a positive way, and you're putting that on there of the football team. Now people's going to start watching this football team, getting behind them to win games. And you never know. I mean, they could surprise you and win 7-8 games this year.
Yeah, I like seeing it. It's um you got to be able to connect with the guys because we're not going to have 4 and 5 stars running out there too deep like Georgia or Alabama. So in addition to being able to scheme, Travis Williams has got to be able he's got to be able to motivate his guys and he's got to be able to connect with them. So if that's what it takes, I'm all for it. I mean, because it honestly, he did look cool doing it. It's not like it was super cringe like when Chad
Yeah.
Morris with his club dub trying, dancing around like a spider monkey out there, and everybody's just face palming like, "What are you doing?" So I mean, he looked good doing it, and if his players, if they're motivated by it, keep doing it.
Yeah. And day and age of social media, I mean, you said what 1.9 million views.
Mhm.
So I mean, you've taken that what we've wanted for so long for Arkansas, something positive to talk about with this football program. Rod, I wanted to ask you, do you think, I mean, just your honest opinion, do you think this is make or break for Pittman, or do you think he's, safe even no matter how this year goes? I mean, where do you think that the seat is temperature wise for Coach Pittman?
Oh, it's blazing hot, and I think he knows it. CBS had him as their number one hottest seat. Betting odds, like you can actually bet right now. Betting odds, Billy Napier is plus 400. He is the betting odds favorite to be the first one fired this year. Sam Pittman's second favorite at plus 500. So I mean, if you think he sucks, go put your money where your mouth is, and you can make some money if he fails this year. But I mean, honestly, it's got to be make or break. The last thing that we need is for him to go 5-7 or 6-6. And I know 6-6 gets us to a bowl, but there's a segment of the fan base that's still going to be calling for his head after that. He needs to be able to win, 8 games to make most of those people shut up. Or rip the Band-Aid off. Let's go 3-9 and we'll try again next year with somebody new. Because 3-9, I think that gets him going. And I'm hoping that's not what happens. I'm hoping that they come in and we see magic, from like we saw the first 8 games of 1998. I would love to relive something like that. I don't know that it'll happen, but I would much rather see, I don't know, fall's better. Arkansas is more fun when the Razorbacks are competitive. Nobody wants to see a losing season, but I'll take 3-9 over 5-7 or 6-6 this year. I don't want to see the can kick down the road for another year and embrace another year of what is this so we're 12, 13 years into this crap right now. I would win big or go home.
Yeah. And also, I know it was talked a lot at nauseum during SEC media days, but when you have an OU and a Texas coming in, but yet you're in the position where Arkansas is, how important is a 7 win 8-win season to get ahead of this. I mean, Texas OU is going to get their kids, but you cannot afford to lose any kind of momentum that you need moving forward in the SEC, especially where this college expansion is. And you might wind up a couple years down the road and getting that 12-game playoff. You don't. I mean, that's where you're not talking about 4 teams anymore. You know, you're expanding this thing to 12, and it gives teams more hope to, I can lose a game. I can afford to lose a game in September, bounce back, and have a strong fall and wind up in the college football playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's something like that. I'm hoping will provide extra motivation for the players, because there's been times, during the BCS era and during the they've never really been in contention during the 14 playoff years, but you know getting that first loss just kind of sucks the energy out of the team, it seems. And you as a coach, you'll be able to go in and say, hey, it's not all over. We can still play for the entire thing at this point. So I'm hoping that helps. It'll definitely, if nothing else, it'll make it a little more exciting at the end of the year. It gets old watching Ohio State and Alabama and Notre Dame and Clemson. It just the same 4 or 5 teams in it every year. It'll be nice to see some of the other teams, and then if the big boys can continue to be the ones that pull it out, hats off. But at least the other teams aren't saying we're being shut out because of human polls and computer algorithms at this point.
Do you have a must-win game that you think is on the schedule, or a game that will shift the team's season one way or the other?
I think it comes really early. I think it's Oklahoma State. I mean, you're not going to learn much in UAPB. I say that, but then the first game last year, who was the nobody that we played?
I think Western Carolina.
Yeah.
Some nobody, and we had trouble running the ball on them, and it was obvious from game one. It's a lost season. I guess you could learn something if UAPB holds us to 80 yards rushing, or we don't score our first rushing touchdown till early in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
Buckle up, sweetheart. It's probably going to be a rough ride. But we go in there, we beat them, and we come in and punch Oklahoma State in the mouth. The guys might actually start to think, hey, maybe there is something to this Petrino guy, and maybe Pittman is these two make a good team, and you throw Williams in there, and we've got a really good coaching staff that can take us a long way. And your confidence plays a huge role in any of it. But they go in and right off the bat and they get drummed by Oklahoma State. Yeah, they're probably going to have to do some clawing to have a respectable record by the end of the year.
And I was talking to Adam last week, was another reason why I put Oklahoma State as such an important game is, even if you do trip up, like BYU last year, you came up short, but then you had a 6-game gauntlet. At least if they get beat by Oklahoma State, you get a game after that. I believe it's UAB right after that to kind of regroup. Last year, you didn't have that chance. You had that tough loss against BYU, and then let's go down this 6-game stretch where we're just getting, 5 games, 7 points or less. And then, of course, the aftermath of Auburn and the Missouri game. So, yeah, I think that, but that Texas A&M game, I think is if you capitalize, say you pick off Oklahoma State and then you turn around and win that A&M game, I think that's where it's one of those monkey off the bat games, just like Missouri.
Yeah. Yeah, all bets are off. If they're 4-0 coming out of that A&M after the A&M game, all bets are off. That's you're going to see people probably getting unreasonably excited, but I mean, if they can do that, they've got a chance at having a really good season to build on for the future.
Definitely, and that's what we want. It's funny that I've heard people who are close with the team saying that, from what they've gathered from this offensive line, they could compete with the top 4 as a top 4 up front group in the conference. And that bodes what you're talking about with being able to run the ball. Carmona there's a lot of people very, very, very high on him. And they're saying he's going to do some special things this year, but that's going to be the key. I think that's the make or break position of this whole program is, if that offensive line, you look at how many, again, 5 games touchdown or less, and then all the times you're in the red zone against LSU, you have a running core or an offensive line with those tight ends and that running back, and then with what weapons you have at receiver, I don't see why this team couldn't win 7 games.
Yeah, and going in the receiver group, I think that's probably a group that a lot of people are sleeping on, and maybe it's because they've watched Taylor Green's highlights at Boise, with his former throwing motion, which apparently Petrino has corrected in his time here. I mean, the ball had a tendency to really float on him, and I just that was my hang up when they got him is watching his highlight reel. And I mean, I know he had some pretty amazing running highlights, but even his passes that he completed, you're watching him thinking, man, an LSU or Alabama defensive back is they're going to snatch that. And they're, before the receivers even had a chance. But I mean, if he's got that corrected, I don't sleep on our receiver group, because I honestly think that they're extremely underrated and could have a serious breakout if Green lives up to his promise under Petrino.
So I know we're still a month away. We're almost right at. Do you have a overall record prediction?
Overall record prediction. I was talking
seat.
to my brother before I came up here, and he's like, "Don't go full homer and say 12-0. Just say 10-2 to be safe." And I honestly, that's still, honestly, it's going to be. I'm going to say 8-4 because I want to stay positive. It's been really easy to be negative and just be down on everything Arkansas sports for a long time here. Save a few decent years of basketball and baseball until you get to the postseason. But I'm trying to stay positive. I'm going to say 8-4, but if it's not at least 8-4, I'm pulling for 3-9. Like I said, I want it to go one way or the other. I just don't want to keep. I don't want to keep this streak of we have a mediocre year and it's cause for celebration. Arkansas's proven that they can win in the SEC. They've done it before. It's been a while, but they can do it. It's not impossible, and I don't think that the fans should be expected to continue to suffer through season after season of some really bad football.
Yeah, and I would take a 7 win if it meant, if you stumble up and get beat by Missouri. I mean, you're still in the SEC. You're still going to have those games, but like you said, if you go 4-0 and then you go 2-6 down the stretch, yes, it's kind of hard to swallow that 6-win season. Or even if you do get a 7th win and then you go 3-5 down the stretch, but if they compete and they win some of these games that they're not supposed to, or I mean, say you're 6-5 or whatever, and going into the Missouri game and you beat Missouri and you're 7-5, I think fans would be okay with that. It's all about, and yeah, I know we call it cherry picking, but it is kind of sensing what games do you win, what games do you lose, how do you finish the season. That really makes a difference between a 7-win that could be okay or a 6-win team that you're just like, I'm not having it.
Yeah, absolutely. I said I'm holding out for more, and I'm still going to go in and hope that they win every single game, even though I know that it's statistically almost impossible. But yeah, you have to add in a dose of realism. But I mean, at the same time, it's a full rebuild is never going to take as long as it used to, because you have the NIL and transfer portal now. So, if you can start showing positive progress and maybe start pulling a handful more people out of the transfer portal next year that can plug some gaps for you, there's no reason that, Arkansas is never going to be an Ohio State or an Alabama or anything like that. I mean, I saw, what was it? Ohio State had 20 million in NIL this year. I mean, that's insane.
Just to lose to Michigan.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, that's, I don't know that Arkansas is ever going to have that kind of NIL funding, but there's no reason that Arkansas should have to endure 13 years like we have.
Yeah.
Exactly. You've got to have at least as many good years as you have bad.
And the NIL money doesn't mean all. Look at Texas A&M, and they were bragging, beating their chest about the boosters and the seats paying the players and stuff. Before, and that was before like NIL was popping. Like they were like, "Hey, these boosters are paying you to play here," and we see how that panned out. You got to have that belief. But yeah, I think it's kind of like the basketball. You get the splash higher like Cal, and you've seen what that did, getting Tyson backing him. Pittman and Petrino and Williams throw together a good foundation and they start winning. You're going to get it. And they added scholarships to the football program and all the other sports. Now you're just going to have that much more opportunity to add to your roster. And yes, it's going to put more pressure on the NIL because now you have to feed more people when it comes to those roster slots. But we'll move on to the other, and we'll talk about the business, the Stirling Soap. No, last time when you were on, we were really talking about, the shaving and stuff, but summertime Glacier is one of my favorite soaps. You talk about coming in from a hot mowing and stuff, and you bathe with that. It's like you're jumping in a creek. Just talk about some of your products for those who are not familiar with your store, what y'all have going on this summer into the fall, and just the variety of products y'all have.
Yeah, so our glacial line of soaps that you're talking about, they've got a decent amount of menthol in them, so yeah, they're perfect for an Arkansas summer. You come in from mowing or building fence, whatever you're doing outside, and you shower with the glacial soap and the menthol. It has the same sensation on your nerves as running cold water over you. So, your body starts to cool off, or it feels like it's cooling off, and especially like, nooks and crannies, armpits, things like that. It's downright cold, and for a lot of people, it's shockingly cold. But there's nothing better for your shower during the summer. But we're also, along that we're preparing to bring back our line of deodorants, and this time they'll be in an antiperspirant formula. And we're adding a lot of new products now that we've got all the extra storefront space, now that we've completed the move to Paris. And our production area for the first time ever um, is separate from our storefront. We have an actual dedicated production facility. Everything's still made by hand, and it's handmade, hand cut, boxed up by hand. But it's nice having different facilities now where we can actually start to consider to expand and bring new products that people have been asking us for.
The pride, you're from the area, talk about, being able to own a successful business and say that, hey, look, this is local. This is what we've handmade in our facility in downtown Paris. I mean, how much pride do you take in being able to market that and talk about that? And I mean, on top of being from the area.
Um, a lot. I mean, I'm pretty humble for the most part, but I am looking from where we came. I grew up on Old Military Road in Midway, Arkansas, about 15 miles east of Paris. Went to school at Paris for a while. Went to school at Subiaco, and then we started the company while I was in our spare bedroom when I was still on active duty in the Army. And to come from that, when I got out of the Army, deciding, hey, let's try this for a business for a while, and literally working out of our bedroom for years to build this company, working out of our bedroom in a converted garage. And then we moved to a shop that we'd restored on our property that the previous owners had used to work on tractors. And then 2019 we bought our first commercial building in Boonville, and then 2 years ago we bought the old Levi's facility here in Paris, and a couple of buildings to house the soap company and the coffee roastery there in Square in Paris. And I feel like even though the economy for the last few years has been really hard to run a small business in, we've persevered, and we're really set up well now with our current facilities to grow when the time comes.
And that's one thing I don't even remember if we touched on that the last time, was your coffee side of things, just the amount of blends and boxing. I think the thing that was really cool was you go in there, you select your blend, but not only that, they're like, okay, what kind of coffee maker do you have? We're going to prepare this for that style. I thought that was really cool that they offered that, but y'all have so many different blends coming out all the time. Just talk about that process and how that's kind of grown as well.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm really expecting that to take off this year. We finally have given in, and we're doing K cups, which so many people that they refuse to go back to having a full pot or doing a pour over, things like that. So they use the K cup machine. So we'll be releasing K cups later this fall. But yeah, I mean, we use it's specialty grade coffee, and once you get used to it, if you're a coffee drinker, I mean, you can't go back to gas stations. You know, I can't even drink Starbucks. If we're traveling, I bring a bag of coffee with me, and I've got our AeroPress, and I get hot water and make my own coffee. But we've had so many people that we've converted to our coffee. Give me a month of drinking Mandy's roasted coffee, and you won't go back. But yeah, like he's talking about with the grinds. There's a line in the movie Black Hawk Down where he says it's all in the grind. It's all in the grind, and it's true. And if you're using coffee that's been ground for an espresso machine and you're using it in a regular coffee maker, it's going to taste like garbage. You may not know it actually tastes like garbage, but the tannins and acid that you're pulling out of that coffee by brewing it with the wrong grind, it's just a thing that a lot of people don't realize. And so that's another way that we're able to convert new customers, is finding out, what are you using to make this coffee, so that we can make sure, A, we're getting you a coffee that you're going to like, but B, that we've got it ground for whatever you want if you don't have your own home grinder.
And the cool thing is, for those who don't know where they're located, it's on the square in Paris. So you can go in and get your soap, shaving creams, all that. Go get a bag of coffee. But if you want a quick cup, you go right next door to the 22 Cafe, and your coffee is there for them to try there as well. So a lot of places you just go buy at retail, but you actually have a place just 2 doors down that offers your coffee there on site.
Yeah, it's 22 Brew right down literally 50 feet away from Stirling Roastery. So when we roast new beans for them, we walk it over there in the bucket so that they're getting extremely fresh coffee to brew for their customers. And it's worked out really well. We're extremely happy to be over here. We've put up a barn dough just north of town, and we have just started moving out of our house in Boonville and getting moved to Paris. And I'm so ready to have this entire, because it's been 2 years since we started moving, and we're finally see the finish line here, and I'm really excited to be done with this and be able to sit down and relax for a while.
How good's that cup of coffee going to taste when you're actually able to sit down that first time and sit back, recline back?
It ain't gonna be the coffee. It's gonna be a nice pint of hillbilly lager from Arkansas Brewing in Ozark.
That's right. Man, well, we really appreciate you coming on. Is there anything coming out that, other than you said there's some fall lineup, is there anything exciting coming out that we need to know about to look out for? And tell everybody where we can find you online on Facebook.
So you can find us at www.stirlingsoap.com, Stirling with an I. But we're on our storefront is there on Highway 22 in Paris, right across the street from the courthouse. And it's not just men's product. We have a huge lineup of women's products as well. So if you're wanting lotion, body butter, perfumes for your wife, whatever it may be, lip balms, we have just about anything that you can think. We're a total bath and body company at this point. So anything that you can need for grooming, we've either got it or it's in the works at this point.
Even got the cologne. I really, really love the cologne that you offer there as well. I honestly, I haven't had a spray cologne in forever. I just take a little bit of, what do you call, the Dapper Dan man, and just dap a little bit on you, and you're ready to go. But Rod, we appreciate you coming on. We'll definitely have you on again during football season and talk some Razorback football. But again, thanks for coming on, and we'll catch you on down the road.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate you having me.
Thank you.
Well, that will do it for this episode of the Hog Talk podcast. Again, brought to you by Stirling Soap, Arkansas Brewing Company, the Believe Network, and Buzz. And we're going to catch you on Thursday.